We got a real fun show planned for you here tonight on CHGO Bears After Dark. Adam Rank returns. We're intertwining a little World Cup talk and transitioning to our Chicago Bears. That's right, Chicago over everything. It's CHGO Bears After Dark, and we're starting right now. Welcome back to CHGO Bears After Dark. Show number 2 for you here on CHGO Bears podcast here on Thursday, July 9th. Who says we don't take care of you good, fine people? And the other person that is always there for the people, that is one Adam Rank, the king of Meatball Island, the king of soccer. While the World Cup is in the midst. Yes, the U.S. went down, but had a little bit of a run, so we thought we'd bring Adam in as we are fighting our way to training camp. Have a little fun here tonight, bridge the gap, and you can get into some Bears football. How are we doing tonight, Adam?
I'm doing real well, thank you. I'm curious to know how everybody did on their ticket drop when the Chicago Bears came out on Wednesday. The lottery hit. I saw a lot of people they're defeated already, just saying, I don't even bother. And it's really tough because as much as I really like Hallis Hall and I think it's cool, I think it's a cool environment. I think when you're there, I mentioned this on my show yesterday, where when you're at Hallis Hall, I don't know if Disney World is like this, but I know Disneyland is constructed in a way that when you're at Disneyland, you don't really see the outside world. And when you're at Hallis Hall, you're kind of, you don't see the outside world. Right. The only problem is there's not a lot of availability for the rank and file and everything. And it's not like it was back in the day when training camp was out in the sticks. So I'm curious how everybody fared in the ticket lottery.
Yeah, it's a frustrating thing. I mean, I could go forever. I could do a whole show about their decision to leave Bourbonnais and the year after year scale back of what I have always known training camp to be. And it's sad. It's not anywhere near what we all experienced growing up as kids and, dating back to Platteville. I'm more of the Bourbonnais generation and so it's a shame. And then when you add it all together, you're cutting down preseason games. I think most fans probably enjoy that, but I think a lot of fans may not realize that preseason games were, for a lot of local fans, their opportunity to take a younger family and go to a game that's not as intense, and then you don't have Family Fest this year. This is the second time in the last 3 years they're not able to do a Family Fest. Another reason why the Bears need to own their own stadium, because they weren't able to do it from a scheduling standpoint, although I think there's a little bit of excuse making going on there. So yeah, just so many different ways that Bears fans are kind of getting held back. And like you said, now I said this yesterday, it's becoming somewhat of an insider's club to go to training camp. And that's not what made me fall in love with this time of year.
No, absolutely. And I never went to Bourbonnais, but I do remember Platteville. And it's interesting too. I know that they use the excuse and they're like, yeah, this is why we need a ballroom or whatever. We need our own stadium. Like you know what? If Olivia Rodrigo was like, I'm doing a show in Chicago and the Bears owned the stadium, they would take the money over the Fan Fest any day of the week. So let's not romanticize it too much. But I do agree. It is just something like, the NFL has changed so much. I do remember that when I was young and when I was growing up, the preseason games were the ones that I used to be able to go to because my neighbor, Mr. Janoski, he would, he was a real estate agent, so he had season tickets. So he saved the regular season tickets for his clients,
Right.
and we could earn an opportunity, usually, doing chores and things of that nature, to go to a preseason game. And you don't know any better when you're a kid. You're sort of aloof, and you see like, if Walter Payton's there, it feels like a real game. So for me, that was always a real cool thing. And now there are years where there's only one preseason game. I forget if we have one or two this year. But it's like
only one at Soldier Field this year.
Yeah. So it's one of those things where you're like, so it's like, I don't know. They've changed a lot of things. It is a business, so to speak. So it is, one of those things that maximize profits, do all that stuff. Does it cost the fans? Of course. But as long as people are willing to pay $120 for a jersey, then everything's cool.
Yeah, for sure. And that machine will never stop. They'll get my money. They'll get all of our money. That's just how this all works. And we're happy to do it as long as the Bears keep Ben Johnson and Caleb Williams around here in the fold. And so
that's one of the things too, is as much as we complain about this, I would be really upset if we had like Mike McCarthy was our head coach and like something like that, something lame like the Bears had done in the past. I do have to get, as much as I sit here and I'm cynical about the way the operation works, the McCaskey family is putting money into the organization. They've updated the scouting. They've updated. I mean, we had an assistant GM. Well, who would have known that we had an assistant GM for the first time in a long time? But at the same time, they paid the money to Ben Johnson. We expect them to pay whatever it's going to take to eventually retain Caleb Williams. So it's the cost of doing business. So as much as we can romanticize the past, the team is putting that money to the organization. So I can't be too cynical.
Well, before we get into some of the fun topics here, and we will, it's you're a soccer guy. Anybody that's watched this program knows you're, coaching soccer greatness out there in California every single day. And so, this is a fun time of year for you and your kids and all the players that you coach, and with the World Cup going on. So we're going to get into some of that and intertwine a little football conversation within that. But, before we do, it's been a little bit since we've been able to kind of talk and we're getting so close to training camp. I'm just curious how this offseason has felt to you as a Bears fan specifically. It has been one of the more odd off seasons. I don't know if it was necessarily completely quiet. You had a center retire. You had your quarterback end up on the Madden cover. There certainly was plenty of stadium talk going around, but at the same time, it feels like church compared to some of the off seasons we've been through in the past.
Yeah, there hasn't been a great civil war where people were taking sides and, there was a lot of disharmony or anything like that. I guess, outside of the draft, where obviously some people had some feelings about the direction of the draft and the way that we should have gone and what should we have done and why didn't we use all of our resources on the defensive side of the football. I really enjoyed what they did. I don't remember if I was on this show after the draft season, but I really appreciated the fact. I know that I gave Phil and Shane a lot of grief because I said they're gonna load up with offense, and it's the thing to do. And when Drew Dahlman retired, they had to go out there. I would even say this too, that if Drew Dahlman hadn't retired, I still think we take Logan, because having depth on the offensive line and really fortifying everything on the offensive side of the football, I truly believe the organization has faith in Dennis Allen to create a good enough defense, regardless of the personnel. And last year, I thought they were really good. They were really good. They're tenacious. They turned the ball over. They did a really nice job with some pieces, battling through some injuries, and they did a nice job. And there's no reason for me to believe that they're not going to do something similar this year. Hopefully, I would hope they get a little bit better. I hope they get a little bit more efficient at getting after the quarterback. But at the same time, we've waited so long for this organization to have a truly elite level quarterback. It would be malpractice to go out there and do nothing and not surround him with anything. We've seen it happen before. So the fact that they keep continuing to dump resources into the offensive side of the football. I really appreciate, and I think that's the way to go. When you compare it to what they're doing in Washington, if I was a Commanders fan, you saw Jaden Daniels get hurt last year, and you're like, well, what did we do? What, we used our first round pick on the defensive side? I would be livid. Like, what are we doing? Why are we not doing this? But the Bears are gone the other way, and they've made sure, and they've tried to ensure that Caleb Williams will have as much success as possible.
That being said, when you're looking here at year 2 of training camp with Ben Johnson, and he certainly turned it up a few notches last year, so much so that you had one particular practice that kind of blew the hair back on the entire Bears local beat, having not seen a practice that physical since the Lovie Smith days, and certainly was noticeable to me as well from the stands. And so you really are looking back at, the 2018 season going into 2019 with Matt Nagy. And while I think we all understand and believe very deeply that Ben Johnson is on a completely another level than Matt Nagy, that being said, the training camps from those 2 seasons were much different. And I thought the Bears had the right energy coming into 2018 from a training camp standpoint. And then Matt Nagy really pulled the reins back in that second year. And obviously there was a lot more that went into the failures of year 2 and beyond. That being said, I'm just curious from your perspective, when you look at what Ben Johnson has in front of him, the Bears had the most games missed by starters during the regular season due to injury, but they also found themselves, and if you listen to guys like Cole Kmet and others, they will point to moments in training camp of why they had the success they did last year. So long-winded question I'm asking here of, is there any worry how much Ben Johnson would dial back, or do you think that he will continue to turn up the notch on the Bears here in the summer?
No, I believe it's all systems go. He's gonna keep continuing to press this team to push him forward. Now, part of the thing last year too is they also threw so much at Caleb Williams. I truly believe that Ben Johnson was kind of still trying to figure out what he had in Caleb Williams. And obviously he took the job in Chicago because he believed in Caleb Williams. He had an opportunity to go to Washington or go to Chicago. He ultimately picked the chance in Chicago, or he had to wait for a year before he was able to get it. But he waited and he wanted to see, but he wanted to make sure that Caleb Williams was his guy. So I think from that sense of the installs and everything like that, they're going to continue to, work on what they can do to make Caleb Williams successful. But I think overall, they're going to take that physicality up a notch. And when you look at what Detroit did, this is why I have a lot of confidence in Chicago's ability to sustain success, because ever since Dan Campbell took over the Lions, that team has been successful. And even though they didn't make the playoffs last year, they were still a good team. I mean, they beat us twice, so they were still a good team. They got befelled by a couple of injuries. They were stung by their own center retiring last year with Frank Ragnow. Ben Johnson's not the type of person who's just going to take it easy. He even said so at the end of the season when he was talking about, like, there's nothing to build on. We're starting over again. And I truly believe that he's going to take that sort of similar mentality here. Now, there were a lot of players who missed a lot of games. I think those players might be the ones who could be in trouble. I mentioned this the other day where Kyler Gordon, could be in trouble, but as somebody in my comment section pointed out, they're like, it would cost them a lot of money to get rid of Kyler Gordon. And I'm like, okay, that's fair. But I do believe that the guys who have battled through injuries or missed games because of injuries and things of that nature, they're going to be the ones who are, you either get with the program or you're going to find a new team. So Ben Johnson has a very distinct vision for what he wants to do with this team. So I would expect this year's training camp to unfold very similar to what we saw last season. Otherwise, I would be shocked if they didn't.
So much to look forward to here coming up. 3 preseason games. We'll have pre and post game shows to all of those. Training camp. We'll do post-practice shows after every single practice, whether they're open practices to the fans or closed practices with media availability within those. And We're also going to have joint practice coverage. You got 2 of those, one in Cincinnati and one down in Nashville as they go and visit the Titans. So there's so much to get into here coming up just around the corner. It's really exciting stuff. So shout out to everybody tuned in here on July 9th, and shout out to Adam Rank here for joining me and getting through here and bridging that gap to training camp, which we all certainly are very excited for. So we're going to give Adam a little runway when we come back. We're going to have a little fun. He's going to take us to class, the OG football. We call it soccer around here. We're going to intertwine a little Bears conversation with a little World Cup as the USA is, hosting the world stage in one of it, probably the biggest sport in the world, even though we feel like it's our football over here. Probably. So Adam's going to take us to school. We're going to have some fun, but we're going to give a shout out to our sponsors. So don't go away. Hit the like button. And when we come back, have some fun talking Bears. But first, as a proud Xfinity customer, I want to tell you about your opportunity to have reliable and intelligent Wi-Fi. And not only that, but you can get it at the same price for the next 5 years. That's the Xfinity 5-year price guarantee. Imagine a Wi-Fi that makes everything in your home work together in perfect harmony. No matter what you're streaming, no matter how many people are streaming, it is going to stream seamlessly when you sign up with Xfinity for that 5-year price guarantee. And here's the best part: no annual contracts, no hidden fees, and Xfinity's best equipment included always. Take it from me, a lot can change in 5 years, but you want to lock in your price and unlock the possibilities with Xfinity today, and learn more at Xfinity.com. Xfinity, imagine that. Select plans only, restrictions apply. Shout out to Xfinity. My internet's always working fast, and I'm proud to tell you that Xfinity is as good as it gets, along with our good friends over at Four Seasons. I saw their trucks all during the 4th of July weekend, all over Northwest Indiana, out here in the region where I call home, and they're always hard at work. It doesn't matter if it's nights, weekends, or holidays. They are always going to be there with expert technicians 24/7 for emergency services. Hey, that summer heat is really kicking our butts right now. You want to make sure your AC is working hard for you. So don't wait for a breakdown. Call Four Seasons today and schedule a complete AC tune-up for just $89.95. That's what it's all about. You want to make sure you get this tuned up. So get Four Seasons, your trusted local experts for heating, air conditioning, plumbing, sewer, and electric. Visit fourseasonsheatingcooling.com for all their special offers and money-saving coupons. That's fourseasonsheatingcooling.com. Tell them CHGO Bears sent you. All right, we're back here on CHGO Bears After Dark. Hit that like button. Subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. Appreciate everybody hanging out. Adam Rank joining us. Make sure you're subscribed to the Sick Podcast. They're doing weekly shows, and when the season gets rolling, the content is going to be flowing. So that being said, Rank, I talked to you, teased you last night a little bit on what we would talk about, give you a little prep here, because, I grew up playing soccer as a kid. It, kind of faded off as I got older. I wasn't a big fan of, getting scored on by the Allison Henderson, putting the double deke on me in front of all my friends. Might have scared me off to the baseball field once upon a time, a young Gregory Braggs. But every time the World Cup comes around, it seems like whether you're into soccer or not, everyone seems to embrace it because it is just so captivating to watch. So that being said, wanted to have a little fun with this and intertwine a little Bears conversation within it, because I started thinking about, I think every time us puffy-chested, proud Americans think that we should win this World Cup. And we dominate every sport, but we cannot figure out soccer. And that being said, we're all looking at, well, what if the best players from all of our top sports played soccer? Would they then win? And so I was looking at some of the Bears players, Adam, and I got to tell you, I'm looking at Luther Burden. I'm looking at Colston Loveland. I'm looking at some different people and sizing up some positions I think they could play. And so I thought I'd tee this up to you. I have my thoughts, but I wanted to see if you could take me to school and see if we're on the same page here.
Okay. Yeah, it is one of those things. It is the old American adage of like, well, if we shut down the NFL for 4 years, we would go win the World Cup, and then we would. I'm like, you really wouldn't, because all these guys who play, like, I don't know if you ever spend a lot of time going out there and watching professional footballers or soccer players, as you Americans like to call them. You'll notice that they're not 6'8", they're not huge. Now Erling Haaland is one of the rare exceptions of like a real dominant, imposing, huge player who goes out there and seemingly runs roughshod. But if you ever watch the way he plays, he is physically imposing as he is still a finesse player. Like he is a lot of times like watching Messi, because he doesn't expend a lot of energy. He's just out there moving like a shark. Nobody can quite keep an eye on him. And even one of the greatest defenders in the game right now, Gabriel Margulies, has trouble keeping track of him, as we saw when Norway eliminated Brazil. So it's one of those things, like, if you don't grow up doing it, I don't think that you could learn it. And it's interesting to me is that as much as we think that the NFL players are these great athletes, guys like Antonio Gates didn't even play football and then shows up in the NFL, is like, yeah, I'll give it a go. And he becomes a Hall of Fame tight end. Nobody can sit there and not play soccer for the majority of their life and then show up like, there's not like a guy, it's not like a college athlete can just be like, you know what, I'm just going to go show up in the Premier League and become a Hall of Famer. Impossible to happen. But it's happened on numerous occasions in the NFL, because there's like Antonio Gates, Bob Hayes. Like, it's impossible. The game, it takes too much skill. And if it's not a part of your DNA and not a part of your culture, you're never going to be that. You're never going to be the elite of the elite.
Well, you say it's impossible, and then I look at this, and I'm looking at a guy like Colston Loveland, and I'm looking at some of the goalies here in the World Cup, and I'm like, look at Colston Loveland. This guy could be the U.S. goalie. This guy looks like a goalkeeper. He's long, rangy. What do you think? That's where I want to start. Is I think Colston Loveland could be our starting goalkeeper, and I don't think it would take that long for him to get on board here. All right. This is a different skill set than some of the other guys. I think he can handle this. Am I out of range here? Am I out of pocket?
You're thinking of him stopping a shot, like his eye-hand coordination. Could he do that? Yeah, of course, if somebody's taking a shot at him, but playing keeper is much more than just trying to stop the ball. Now, if you ever watch a lot of these matches, some of these teams, especially the team that I support, Arsenal, loves to build out from the back, which means the keeper has to be in control of the game. And there's a lot of passes back to him. We saw what happened when the American keeper tried to get too cute. He runs out there. Remember when Younghoe Koo missed that field goal on Monday Night Football and just dug his foot? I'm surprised more people didn't bring that up, because that's exactly what it reminded me of, because he just whiffed. He just fatted the ball. Like that shows you, like, that if you don't grow up playing the sport, as talented as Colston Loveland would be, and he might, you throw him in there in PKs, like, he might make a stop. He might make two. Like, he's a physically imposing person. But that other aspect of the game, I'm assuming you didn't watch Monday night, because if you did, this would have blown up your entire argument right there. This is what happens when you have a guy who is not ready for the world stage playing keeper, no matter how talented he is. I'm sorry.
I did watch Monday. I think what stands out to me every time the World Cup rolls around is that once you get to this level of the World Cup, the passing for the other teams, they have the ball on a string, and it just feels like more times than not, the passing will get away from the U.S. It's just not as crisp, and you got to be able to control that ball. You can't have turnovers, and I thought that, for me, the most simplistic reasoning, if we're going to actually have any, like, if I'm going to actually give you real soccer analysis, I think that's the biggest thing that stands out to me watching some of these other countries. So I look forward to the U.S. one day matching the call. But so
But
like kind of
actually, you know what? When you saw their first game against Paraguay, and even in the second game as well, and when they played Turkey, they didn't quite have that momentum, but they did a lot. They were playing a lot better, and even beating Bosnia, they were playing a lot better. They were actually on the offensive. Too many times we saw the U.S. men's national team. We also got to differentiate it. We're talking about the men here. The women have won 4 World Cups. We are a soccer power. We are a soccer nation. We're strictly talking about the men here. But the way that they played, and this is one of the things that I said coming out of this, is I thought this team did a great job of moving forward because we played an exciting brand of football. We were aggressive. No team had scored more first half goals than we did. We were pressing people. We were, very aggressive. And I know that Belgium, when you sit there and you look at guys like Kevin De Bruyne didn't play, I think a lot of it, Belgium expected us to play a lot better. And I think that they were kind of holding back their guys, expecting us to go into extra time, perhaps go to PKs where you would start to bring some of these guys in. But the U.S. brand through the first 4 games that they played was really exciting. And it's something, but, and I don't want to blame one person, but, the controversy was the controversy, and the U.S. never looked the same. And then Pulisic goes out there and just doesn't have it. And I think that Carly Lloyd and a lot of it's one thing if somebody like me is like, Pulisic doesn't have it. But like when you have multiple World Cup winners calling you out, you're probably not playing up to your capabilities.
Well, that's why I'm trying to help. So, I'm looking at this and, all right, Loveland, maybe it might take him some time to become a goalie. And, obviously this is all tongue in cheek, but, I think on first glance, you'd want Luther Burden, shooting the goals. He gets up there, makes a move on someone, and then puts it across and bends it, buries it in the back of the net. But when I started researching kind of the roles of each guy on the field, it feels like Luther Burden's more of a midfielder. Am I wrong in this? That's where he would be best, right?
Yeah, he could definitely be a box to box midfielder. I think one of the things that's really impressive about him, one of the things that I really enjoy about Luther Burden is that when he has the ball in his hands, he's elusive like a running back. I think you don't see a lot of wide receivers with the ability to move the way he does and put guys out of position and everything like that. So that part of it is great. Can he do that with a ball at his foot? Nah, I don't know. I don't know if that's going to be. And again, if he's not doing it by age 5, he's never doing it. He's never doing it enough to be at the world stage. Like it just doesn't happen. We have to have, for this to be successful, I think that a lot of the guys that you're talking about, if Luther Burden had grown up where he played soccer every day and had the footwork, then yes, definitely would have been able to do it. We saw it with Antonio Freeman's kid being able to do that as well. Okay. And there are some guys that it just takes a lot. Like it's more than just the 40 times. I think too often Americans are too enthralled with the measurables, the RAS scores. You all look at this like Ryan Poles, excuse me. I have Ryan Pace too a little bit, where you're looking at like, hey, his shuttle, his 3-cone, and it's all that stuff. And I'm like, that's amazing. But you have to do it with a ball at your foot. And it's so difficult to do it. And I was sitting out there today. I was playing against 2 8-year-olds. And it's like, man, just trying to still square up that ball when you're on the run. Like it is so difficult to do. But yes, if coming out of the womb, Luther Burden III had been given a soccer ball, he might be somebody who would be on the World Cup team.
All right, fine. I appreciate you indulging me here. So finally, now I'm trying to find, who's the striker? Who's the one that's going to put it in the back of the net? Who's going to be the one that lines up for the penalty kick? You get to the end and you need that one. You got to have it. Who are we looking at here that's going to be that guy that's going to be the scorer for the team. That was the one I struggled with the most, is trying to identify this guy here from the Bears.
Yeah, it's difficult. It's the style of striker as well. And you do want somebody who could, possibly take a couple defenders with you. I know you put Colston Loveland at the keeper position, but I think that, again, going from the Erling Haaland role, I'm also a fan of Victor Gyökeres, who is a physically imposing person. We're starting to see bigger strikers emerge, especially in the Premier League, where you're like, we're getting bigger guys. So it's got to be somebody who has a little bit more size. I would think, you wonder if Cole Kmet, the way he uses his body is really good. Because again, it's a lot about positioning. And I think that with Erling Haaland, what you're seeing out of him is just the ability to find space. I know he's not a Bear, but like Travis Kelce does a lot of that, where he finds open space. The way Travis Kelce plays NFL football is something that would translate, that if he'd been growing up to play, because like Travis Kelce doesn't run a route. I don't know if you've ever watched the Chiefs at great length, but like he doesn't run routes. He just shows up in open spots. And I think for somebody like Travis, I think some of our tight ends would actually make pretty useful strikers, because if they could get it. And one of the things too that we're starting to see that I hadn't seen in a long time is the diving headers are making a comeback too. We saw Drew Bellingham do it against Mexico the other night, from a great cross from Bukayo Saka, and did the diving header into the goal. So you want somebody a little rangy like that. I'm curious if Roma Dunze would be able to carry that out, or somebody like that, but somebody who does a great job of finding the open space. That's what you want. You don't necessarily need a huge physical brute, although it does help. But if somebody can find the open space, because more often than not, you would rather just have free reign as opposed to fighting your way through two defenders.
We've got a few comments here from the chat, some soccer thoughts from Jerry saying, I won't hold rank for his bad judgment of picking Arsenal over Man U. Your thoughts?
I made a great call in choosing Arsenal back in the day. I think, although I do believe that Man United is in really good shape to make a run this year. There was a lot of talk at a midpoint last year where all the Man U fans were convinced, like, okay, like if we win our last 10 games and Arsenal bottles it here, it doesn't, you're like, dude, it's not happening. They're not dropping that many points. And Man U ended up folding in a couple of spots too as well. Man U was the most successful team when I started really getting into it. Like, I really started getting into it. I honestly started watching when the Bolton Wanderers, and by the way, the Bolton Wanderers just got promoted to the championship this year, which is awesome. They were down to, League One, and they got promoted. But it's funny because when I was watching, Man U was the team. And I think that a lot of Americans during that era were Man U fans, to where I'm like, I can't pick Man United. They're already too popular. Now, similarly, when people are like, what Premier League team should I watch? I'm like, well, you can't watch Arsenal. Number one, they're the league champs. Number two, they're extremely popular. Like, this is one of the things I noticed at the Super Bowl wearing an Arsenal kit was how many people are like, yeah, I support Arsenal. You're like, okay, cool. Like, it's become one of those things. So I feel like I made the right choice. It was a long run. Like, I missed the Invincibles, so I did not see that great team. So I was a couple of years after that. So, yeah, I think I made a great choice. But, Man U looks really good this season, for this coming season. And by the way, a lot of these Arsenal guys aren't going to be able to play. Like Bukayo Saka, Declan Rice, those guys aren't even going to be able to play until the first international break, because they just need time out because they played so much football over the last 365 days.
And Scottish Bear here in the chat overseas saying, Adam, Arsenal is going to sign Barcola and Bruno from Newcastle. So
yeah, they got to, you know what? They got to, number one, they got to solidify the midfield. And this is one of the things. It's funny trying to describe it, because my kids love Declan Rice. They love Bukayo Saka, and they also love Leandro Trossard, who is likely not going to be coming back to Arsenal. He's a 31-year-old guy. For anybody who likes the Blackhawks, I think Arsenal is kind of taking a similar vein. Like, remember when the Blackhawks went through their run where they won 3 Stanley Cups in 5 years, and they're like, we're going to keep Kane, and was Kane and Toes, right? Those were the two guys that they could.
Taves and Kane, and
they're like, we're keeping these 2 guys, and then everybody else is replaceable. And I think Arsenal's kind of taken that because the LA Kings said, like, let's keep the band together. Let's give Dustin Brown a ridiculously huge contract. And it actually cost them to where if the Kings had just said, we're going to go after Kopitar and Drew Doughty, which I think they eventually did too late, and like, we'll just replace everybody else, I think the Kings would have had a longer run. But the Blackhawks did it correctly. Arsenal looks like they're doing that right now, and we're going to end up losing a lot of our favorite players, and it's going to be really sad. But at the same time, it's something that you have to do to move forward, and it's a great way of roster building. So I appreciate it. I'm going to be bummed out. I'm going to be bummed out missing Leandro, apparently, but understand that's the nature of the business.
Well, yeah, absolutely. So I thought I'd, have some fun with this. Like I said, it's World Cup time right now. It's, baseball is slowing down. It's the All-Star break, and, NBA summer league's right around the corner, but NFL still a few weeks away. And so thought I'd have a little fun with this because I know how much soccer is a part of your life. And so, hey, it's the off season. I understand. And we're going to have some fun here and find some creative ways to talk about the Bears and talk about things that are going on around the sports world right now. Maybe we'll get into some golf here later in the show. I could just, talk golf. We could talk golf the entire show. I would be completely fine with that. So we're going to come back. We'll talk about a few more things regarding the Bears off season before we wrap this show up and get ahead to some things. So hit that like button, subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. Appreciate everybody hanging out here on Thursday, July 9th, show 2 of Thursday, July 9th here on CHGO Sports. So don't go away. We'll be right back, and we'll be taking the temp here with Adam Reagan. Hey, listen, whether it's on the field or in your financial life, the best teams win by delivering excellence at every level. And with Old National Bank, they believe that every play matters. And we certainly know that with our Chicago Bears. Now you know it with Old National Bank. From everyday checking to long-term planning and commercial banking, their team is there to help build momentum and help you move the ball forward in your life. It all starts with a plan tailored for you by professionals that you can trust. From simple tasks to bigger financial moments, you can count on them to coordinate your needs with steady, knowledgeable guidance that brings clarity and confidence with each step. That's a partnership that's designed to help you feel supported, not just today, but well into the future. So whether you're celebrating a win or rebuilding after a tough loss, get with Old National Bank. They're going to get you the tools, the insights, and the expert guidance. That's Old National Bank. Member FDIC, where relationships and results always matter. We appreciate you, Old National Bank, as we appreciate the good friends over at Ray CDJR. That's right. New vehicles are in store at Ray, Chrysler, Dodge, Jeep, and Ram. And this is your chance to score great deals at the Make This the Summer event. Head to Ray CDJR and Route 12 to choose from their huge inventory of new Chrysler, Dodge, Jeep, and Ram models. And right now, get up to $14,000 off MSRP plus 2.9% financing for 72 months on the new 2026 Ram 1500 Crew Cab. So go check out our partner today to shop one of Chicago area's largest inventories. Find the new right vehicle for you and then drive home happy. For more information, visit Ray CDJR on Route 12 in Fox Lake or online at raycdjr.com. They've been serving the community since 1963. All right, we're back here on CHGO Bears After Dark. Hit the like button, subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. Appreciate everybody hanging out here. And we are going to take the temp with our good friends from Four Seasons. That's right. Four Seasons, your trusted local experts for heating, air conditioning, plumbing, sewer, and electric. They've been serving Chicagoland for over 50 years. Visit fourseasonsheatingcooling.com for all their special offers and money-saving coupons. That's Four Seasons Heating Cooling. and we are taking the temp on some betting lines that we kind of went over on our afternoon show the last couple days, Adam. And there's some interesting ones, over under, passing yards. They had Colson Loveland and Roman Dunze both at 800. But the one that really piqued my interest the most was they set the over under for Caleb Williams passing yards. Can you guess what number they gave Caleb Williams on average? If you go to all the normal betting sites, what the rough average is of those three, let's say.
All right. Well, a lot of these you got to remember they're set to make sure that they get equal amounts of play on both sides because they make their money from the juice. Mm-hmm. So if I'm setting the line, and maybe this is why I'm not in charge of such things, I know that the Goombas, the Goon Squad, and all those guys who, the meatballs will always take the over. Like, well, I'm taking the over. Like, no matter what it is, I would say it's got to be 4,000 yards, maybe even 4,100, because they know like they'll get a lot of it. They'll get a lot of Bears fans being like, I got this. I'm putting my money on there. But I also know the people, all the haters will be like, there's no way he does it. So you would get a lot of action.
So I had guessed 3,900. So I was kind of in your realm. The answer is 3,600. And
no way.
And he was 80 yards short of 4,000 last year.
Yeah.
And so we had Sammy P on from Fox 32. He's a betting odds sharp guy. He's gonna, and the way he explained it was like this time of year, so many people are going to, take the under. If they set it at 4, then everybody's gonna take the under. Right. And now you're banking on an injury. So he explained the science behind it. That being said, let's push the science to the side, push the math away, even though we're talking betting lines. And it just looking at that from taking the temp on this for me.
Jeez Louise.
Do you feel any sort, you're have more of a heart or a pulse on the national pundits? Whereas we are so hyper-focused around here on the opinions of the local coverage. Do you feel any kind of it feels like everyone has pushed their chips all in that Ben Johnson is this greatness. He's going to have a Hall of Fame jacket. And there's this hesitancy with Caleb Williams to not go all the way in the same way, even though I think we all acknowledge he is insanely talented, capable of things no Bears quarterback's ever been able to do. But yet there's like this hesitancy to just push the chips all the way in to say he's going to reach his full potential, which is more than most quarterbacks could ever dream of in their life.
Yeah, this is a pretty interesting way to be about it. And I see Eric right here too, talking about like, is the schedule going to be difficult? That's what they said last year. Is the Bears had the most difficult schedule in the NFL. Like that's what it was last. Like, this is it. I went back the other day and I watched the last part, the good part of the Bears playoff rally against the Green Bay Packers. And what a masterful play calling job Ben Johnson did. Just the way he drew it up. And the way everything unfolded. And, obviously Caleb made a couple of mistakes early, but Ben Johnson going out there and just understanding like, okay, the Packers are going to throw these false fronts at us and they're going to disguise their cover 2 and sometimes cover 3. And okay, so they got us once.
Yep.
When you watch the play drawn up, like the touchdown to DJ Moore is so obscene, where they faked the screen and they got those guys to bite on it so hard. And DJ, like one of the most, when you think about the playoff run, and everybody will think about Cole Kmet's touchdown and everything like that. The touchdown to DJ, he was so wide open. Like, it's so rare to see that. Like, how many times have we watched Aaron Rodgers go out there or Brett Favre, and he'll find Antonio Freeman or Jordy Nelson or somebody who's just so stupidly wide open. Like, how come we can never do that? We have that. And it's not like we haven't had evidence that Ben Johnson has this ability, because I said I have no hesitation to put Ben Johnson in that category with Sean McVay and Kyle Shanahan and all those guys. And somebody's like, pump the brakes. He's got to do it more than 1 year. You're like, he's done it more than 1 year. Did you not see what he did in Detroit? Like, he made Jared Goff one of the top passers in the NFL from a guy who Sean McVay had given up on. I'm really confident in it. And doing the math here, 3,600 passing yards is an average of 212 passing yards per game. I believe this. I guess like the haters are going to continue to hate, and they're going to say, no way he can do that again. And they know that every Bears fan is jumping on the over. So maybe it is a great stroke of luck there, and maybe they'll make some money off the haters. But, man, I think that's extremely low, almost disrespectful in a way. Yeah, I don't know if I lost your audio.
No, I muted it because my cat is screaming at me from the other side of the door. I just texted Jenny to come get you. He yells at us because all he wants is to go outside. And so then I muted because I was about to start screaming. His name's Cheeto. His full name is Cheeto Burrito Bandito. But he's being a bandito right now. That's what it is. And it's annoying. There's been a few times I've done like a cold opening. You can hear him yelling in the background.
Oh my gosh.
I love him very much, but he's driving me crazy. All he wants to do is be outside. So it's certainly interesting here. So as I was saying, like the way Sammy P was describing is like, now everyone will bet the over, and that's what the odds makers want. And then as we get closer to the season, the number will come up, and then people will bet the under. So yeah, I'm not a big gambling guy, but it did feel like that number was extremely low. You looked at Colston Loveland, 800 yards over under for passing yards, felt pretty light in the way that they were using him at the end of the year. But I think when you look at standard numbers for some of the best tight ends in football, you mentioned Travis Kelce earlier. That's roughly around where those guys kind of land. It's just kind of the way of the world, especially in an offense with Ben Johnson. And to your point about, DJ Moore coming wide open. I mean, I think that's the thing. And we've been talking about it all week when we were like talking about like, if you only had to pick one, another awesome offseason conversation. But if you could only take one, who would you keep? Ben Johnson or Caleb Williams? I was on the Ben Johnson side of things, where Mark, surprisingly enough, was on the Caleb Williams side of things, saying you have to have the star. And for me, the star is Ben Johnson. And that's not taking anything away from Caleb Williams. I think Caleb Williams is a star in his own right. I just think Ben Johnson is on another level. And when you saw DJ Moore come open on that play, that was something schematically that they saw from the first half in a look they gave him that sprung him open. And so for me to have that kind of tactician as your play caller, it just opens up so many possibilities. And when you look at the chess pieces, as you said to start the show, Adam, where they win all in once again on the offense, he has so many chess pieces, so many different personnel groupings he can throw at, teams. He was asked, is he worried about the league catching up to him? And, he said, we play multiple in so many different ways. You're not tracking us. And like, you love that kind of confidence from your head coach.
They haven't done it. They've not caught up to him in 5 years. How long has he been calling plays in the NFL? At least, is it 4 years, 5 years? Forgive me if I don't have it exactly. But that's the thing. Like, sometimes you see these coaches, like Adam Gase comes out and gets a job because, Peyton Manning and Jay Cutler had their best seasons under Adam Gase. And you're like, okay, so one of the greatest quarterbacks in NFL history and Peyton Manning both had their best years under this guy. Like, no, it's the quarterback. Matt Nagy hung out in the locker room with Patrick Mahomes and got a job. Like, we're talking about a guy, and again, Jared Goff has made himself into a good to great NFL quarterback. That doesn't happen without Ben Johnson. I'll tell you that right now. If he would have gone to Cleveland, Jared Goff might not even be in the NFL right now. So that's the thing. That's the thing that I always will push back on people. It's like it's not like he worked. It's not like he was Patrick Mahomes' offensive coordinator. It's not like he was Josh Allen's offensive coordinator. We saw with Brian Daboll.
Right.
Like, that's why I have I'm not like sweating this. Like, I'm not, we've had too much evidence of it. It wasn't he wasn't a 1-year wonder in Detroit. You know, if he had been hired the year that Washington was trying to get him, there could have been some concerns like, is he really good? Like, we don't know, but he went out and proved it again. And then he comes to Chicago and he turns Chicago around.
Yep.
So I have no doubt about
the way
it.
He's traded punches with Brian Flores, dating back to the Detroit days. Him and Matt LaFleur continue to go toe to toe. These guys know his tendencies over the last 5 years, and Ben came to a brand new team this last season and still found a way to, find his way to a division championship. And that certainly wasn't with their best effort within division games. So it's going to be really interesting. And so thought we'd take the temp a little bit with our good friends over at Four Seasons. So shout out to them once again. Visit fourseasonsheatingcooling.com for all their special offers and money saving coupons. Okay. Before we wrap things up, we did get a super chat coming in here late. Christopher Thomas saying, what are the odds a starting quarterback doesn't have an injury 3 years in a row? I'd imagine that might factor into the yardage total that they set, for the odds makers. And that certainly, I think, holds merit there. Caleb Williams has now started 36 games in a row as the Bears starting quarterback. The Bears had never had a starting quarterback play a full season since like 2009. And now Caleb's done it 2 years in a row. So knock on wood, Christopher, if you're superstitious in any way, but that's certainly a big factor. And Caleb is built the right way to take some hits and be able to stay up and stay out there. But that is why it's important to have a guy like Tyson Bagent. I know Mark Harmon isn't a part of this program, but you never know. And you saw, backup quarterbacks, whether it was Green Bay or Denver or whoever, have to be called into action. On average, Adam, starting quarterbacks, I think on average, play 15 and a half games, start 15 and a half games per season. So the majority of teams, have to play their backup for a game to 2 games in any given year.
Well, remember like Eli Manning had that impressive streak for the longest time. It wasn't until he got benched for Geno Smith that he broke his, Iron Man streak as a starting quarterback. I want to look just out of curiosity. Okay, well, here's the thing. So Jared Goff has not missed a start in 4 years. So he started 17 games for 4 consecutive years. His first season in Detroit, he started 14 and they're 3-10 in 1 year. He's been there starting. He has not missed a game since the 2021 season. Who's the common thread in all this? It is it's Ben Johnson. Maybe he finds a way to protect his quarterbacks like this. I don't know. Never say never, but
get the ball out of their hand, right?
Yeah. I was curious. Yeah, I was curious. I'm glad I looked that up. So yeah, I get what everybody's saying. Like, there's always 100. What is the old adage? Like, it's 100% certainty that these guys are going to get hurt. Jared Goff is going into his 5th year of hasn't missed a game in 4 seasons. That's incredible.
Yeah, between that and I think Kyle Monungai hasn't had a fumble since high school. I think between those two stats, it's like, wow, how long are they going to push this on? So let's hope they continue to do that. Cheeto Burrito Bandito has entered the chat, and for $5, he says, somebody get over here and love me. #PETA. So Thank you for the super chat, Cheeto, making up for disturbing me during the show. So, last 5 minutes here as we wrap up a summer edition of CHGO Bears After Dark. Once again, Adam, I can't thank you enough for joining me and helping me bridge the gap as we get closer to training camp, just under 3 weeks away from players reporting to Hallis Hall. Let's get to the business, the real business of the day. How is your golf game going? You know, are you working on it as hard as I am? I haven't gotten any updates, and I'm just curious where your game's at. I watched your Instagram video today, looking at that new shaft, nice American flag shaft, but I'm just curious where you're at. That's the important question of the day.
Drove the ball really well. What's funny is when I'm at the range, I do a really nice job of getting my hands up and getting a steep angle. But then I get out there on the course and I'm still like, I don't know if I'm afraid to just like kind of cut it loose, but still played pretty well. I had no birdies today, but only one double bogey. So getting the double bogey avoidance is pretty good. And there was like, I would say off the top of my head, there was four putts that I really wish I would have made. Could have done a better job. My bump and run game, whenever you get into the Kukua grass, this course, it's always so tough because you got the Kukua grass. So when you're trying to bump and run, you're really taking like, you never know how the grass is going to react. So I got to have a little bit more confidence in my lofted wedges. So if I can get my confidence in my lofted wedges.
Hesitant pulling out the 56 because that's my go-to.
I actually just love bumping and running with the 8. And a lot of the courses that I play, the grass is nice. So it allows you the opportunity to run it up there. But there were a lot of pin placements today where I really shouldn't have done that because I didn't have a lot of green to work with. Mm-hmm. And I always found myself on the short side. That's the thing too, man. Like I can just never even if I'm getting greens in regulation, I'm still 90 feet from the pin. It's like, God, this sucks.
Yep.
It's a full club.
I'd rather chip at that point.
Yeah, I'd rather bump and run at that point.
That's the thing for me. I love the way you're talking here. And I think for anybody that really gets into golf, it gets to a point where you start strategizing in the way that you're talking about of trying to avoid those double bogeys and that math each hole to stick to your score. And it really does come down to chipping because you're not going to get all greens in regulation. So you got to save some of those strokes by having some good chips. I don't bump and run as much. I do more of the loft. I use the 56. I find I change. I stand on 1 foot now when I chip, and it's completely changed my game because I wouldn't completely follow through. I'd stop halfway through, and I called it the chip yips. And so standing on one leg has helped me let go of that for whatever reason. So it's been fun.
Gotta do the Jimmy Tropicana, swing the V, and then sheath the sword, and we'll usually set you up all right.
Yeah. So, one Instagram reel at a time. Every night I discover something new about the sport. So it's been a lot of fun, man. And starting to low 80s is my expectation every time I walk out on that course. So having fun here and, a few more weeks before we get into training camp. So going to take advantage of that and get out on the course a few more times. Got TTNL here in the chat saying, good show, fellas. See y'all next week. That's right. Monday will be in our usual slot coming back here the next couple weeks before we get to the official week training camp begins. So stay tuned for that Monday night here coming up. Want to thank you once again, Adam, for joining me here for a full hour here on July 9th. I owe you for the 9,000th time. So one day it'll be made up by a fun round of golf on a nice course somewhere.
I'd love that.
I look forward to that day coming. But outside of that, I appreciate your time tonight and your friendship and your support to the program. And so I look forward to more Bears conversations as the season is getting ready to be underway. Once again, as we hit to the top of the hour, become a diehard at CHGO Sports. Head to allchgo.com/diehard. Use that code JOHNS, JAHNS. Free shirt as soon as you sign up. Get free discount, or you get discounts on merchandise and events. We've got a lot of great things here coming up around the pike, including a trip to Miami. So make sure you tune in for all that. So that's going to wrap things up. Appreciate everyone. Hit that like button, subscribe to the channel. We are just under 3 weeks away from training camp. Thanks for tuning in. Keep your head up, ladies and gentlemen, and always bear down.
We all silly like the mayor.